Good morning, welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. We always knew that this would happen. You'll start getting people coming out in support of the board, and Neil Lennon is the latest person to take to the media and be in support of Celtic board and Dermot Desmond. Does it surprise you? No. You've got to understand that a lot of these ex-managers and ex-players are only interested in one thing when it comes to Celtic and Celtic fans, and that's getting paid to turn up at Celtic events. It's not a lot of them turn up for nothing. In fact, none of them do. Having asked a certain person to appear on a podcast, I was basically refused due to the fact that there was going to be no financial transaction between myself and said person. But anyway, we move on from that. And I've spoke to other people who run podcasts, and tonight I'm going to give a shout out to a publication that's been around for around about 24 years or so. In fact, I'll do that tonight on the podcast. A good friend that has been doing Celtic fan media for 24 years and is not in the limelight at all. But he's had a publication that's went out for 24 years. So make sure that you stay around tonight, and we're going to talk about that a little after, obviously, the Celtic Collective meeting. Hopefully that finishes on time at 9 o'clock. If not, I'll just need to leave the meeting. But anyway, Neil Lennon has spoken. And he's spoken to the Sun. As you do, don't you? As you do. It's funny how the Sun got the story about Brendan Rodgers, and then the Sun go to Dunfermline. Lenny, go and give us an interview. Neil Lennon says that Dermot Desmond is a genius who loves Celtics, and fans that are protesting are wrong. Neil Lennon's words. Everything that he did was for the betterment of Celtic. Neil Lennon has jumped to the defence of under fire Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell. He has warned Celtic fans they will struggle to get better men in charge. Celtic fans have obviously held up banners. Sack the board, where it has Dermot Desmond, Peter Lawwell, Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson. And obviously a lot of fans do think it's the end of the road for the well-tanned, now staying in Portugal, Peter Lawwell. The Celtic Fans Collective have called for change in their meeting tonight, but Lenny, a treble winner as a manager and player, is baffled by the protests directed at Dermot Desmond. He says he thinks it's unnecessary. I don't agree with it, said Neil Lennon. Ask about finding suitable replacements. He sarcastically said, good luck. And I've said that, you know, getting rid of Lawwell and bringing in Martin O'Neill would be a good step. Whether some people are saying, look, Martin O'Neill's too old. He's in his 70s now. I think that chairman of the club doesn't have to be a spring chicken. Chairman of an organisation has to be someone with a vast experience and knowledge of the game. Martin O'Neill. It has to be somebody that's not involved in the day-to-day running of the football club, who can take life at an easier pace. Martin O'Neill. And someone that can bring together the Celtic family, as they like to call it, Martin O'Neill. That's just my opinion, and I think that it's something that maybe we should start a campaign. Asked about finding suitable replacements, he replied, good luck, says Lennon. The former chief executive, Lawwell and Dermot Desmond, gave Lennon his first managerial role back in 2010, and he's remained close to them ever since. That close that Lawwell walked into the showers after a game at Hampden and offered Lennon the job on a full-time basis. The former captain says he's bewildered by the supporters' stance, given the dominance over Scottish football in the last 25 years. I think Neil Lennon is an interesting character when it comes to Celtic, because this is the man who walked over to the corner of 111 and placed the League Cup trophy down in front of us. And I've got to admit, that gesture by Neil had me almost in tears that day. when he walked over to the corner and he placed the trophy down on the grass right in front of where I sat, and it was an unbelievable gesture. And obviously it was to the fans that backed him up in the Green Brigade. But it's... Of course he's going to back them. But he does go on to say in the article, he says he finds it bewildering, the fact that the 25 years of dominance, this has basically came around because of one transfer window. How out of touch is Neil Lennon if he thinks this is down to one transfer window? Neil Lennon says the Irish billionaire should remain. Dermot is a genius for me. Not just from a sporting point, but from an intellectual point of view. He's very successful, hugely successful, probably the most successful... He's sounding a bit like Trump, isn't he? Probably the most successful man I've ever come across in terms of what he's earned, generated and built within his career. On an intellectual level, no one has ever come close that I've came across. He's very forward thinking and always looking to the future. Dermot, why did you allow Celtic to chase a manager for 6 months to then get knocked back and then in a mad scramble pick up the phone to Ange Postecoglou to get him in quick? That's not forward thinking. Forward thinking, yes, you could say, yeah, Dermot Desmond brought in Martin O'Neill when at the time the board were struggling to find a suitable manager to take Celtic forward. And Dermot went, I've got your man, it's Martin O'Neill. There's your manager. He says that he's very proactive, I have to say, in supporting Irish sportsmen, whether it be at football, golf or Gaelic football. That's it. He's the fault that we paid 10 million for Adam Ida. It's all his fault. He wanted Adam Ida at Celtic. That's why we paid 10 million for him, or whatever it was. He loves sport. He loves Celtic, said the Dunfermline manager Neil Lennon. Lennon also backed Lawwell. I was going to say Bowell. Lawwell, who retired as chief executive in 2021 after 17 years, and then soon returned as a non-executive chairman 18 months later. And the new dawn that we all thought we had at Celtic started to peter out. The new way of working that we had under Ange Postecoglou, getting players in quick, getting players in so that we knew that if a player was sold the next summer, we had a ready place replacement in the club waiting to come through the ranks. We don't have that now. Funny that, isn't it? After a few years of Peter Lawwell coming back. I fell out with him loads of times, says Neil Lennon, as you would do over deals, contracts or whatever. Oh, interesting, Lenny. So you do agree that Lawwell is the issue at the club? He's basically admitted. But everything he did was for the betterment of Celtic Football Club. Every deal, every decision made, the club always came first. It depends on what side of the fence you're sitting on, Neil. Because if you have admitted, I fell out with him loads of times, as you would do over deals or contracts or whatever. So Neil Lennon has admitted that Peter Lawwell has held the club back by not pursuing players or not paying the going rate for players, which has allowed deals to collapse. Neil Lennon says he's brought great success. They've fought many battles for the club, many battles they've won against the odds. Tell us what battles then, Neil. What battles have they won against the odds? Go and open up to the fans. And then it goes on to show the dominance. And maybe we sometimes need to remind ourselves of the dominance. It started back in 2011, 2012, when Neil Lennon came in, 2012, 2013. 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, we went through various managers, then Neil Lennon. Ronnie Dyler. The Ronnie Roar. And a lot of us wanted to see Ronnie stripped down to his pants and get in front of the fans the way that he did at his previous club. And then after Ronnie, there was obviously Brendan Rodgers. After Brendan Rodgers, there was Neil Lennon again, unfortunately. And then after Neil Lennon didn't win the 10 in the COVID season, it is the blight on his career. And people will say, look, there was a lot of mitigating circumstances to losing that year. Players that wanted to leave the club, players that didn't leave the club, players that couldn't leave the club, players that came into the club that couldn't leave their hotels, that didn't feel as if they were in the right place. So you can understand that. But since then, we've been successful over the last 4 years. We've won consecutive titles. With the same board, the same backroom staff as pretty much has been through the majority of that time, from Ronnie Dyla forward. You can understand why Neil Lennon has backed them, but how out of touch has he become? I just think that the success the club has had since 2020 has been incredible. The amount of titles in Champions League and the UEFA final players says. Player trading, the money the club has and how well it is sustainable the club is. The health of the club is what they think about going forward. They know they're not going to be there forever. And this is what we want, Neil. We want them to move on. But what they've achieved off the field is incredible. There's no way Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, Gordon Strachan would be at Celtic if it hadn't been for Dermot. No way, honestly. We all know that Dermot brought in Martin O'Neill. We always knew that Gordon Strachan was going to take over from Martin O'Neill. It was well spoken about at the time. It was the worst kept secret at Celtic. But I think a lot of Celtic fans fear about the future, because Brendan Rodgers isn't going to be there forever. We're not going to find another Ange Postecoglou, it doesn't look like. And if you look at the mess across the road, where there's people turning down the club left, right and centre because they're a shit show, the Celtic fans and the board are walking a very, very tight line of battle between the two of them. And this kind of love message that's sent. I mean, why did Neil Lennon feel the need to talk to the media about Celtic when he's the manager of Dunfermline? He's been nothing to do with Celtic since that horrible season of COVID where no one could get to games. But why now? Why feel the need to come out and speak to the Sun just weeks after the Sun published an article saying that a certain current Celtic manager was working his ticket? Why go back to an ex? I thought there was a golden rule within football and managers that you don't talk about your previous employers. Just seems to be Scottish football. They just want to dig up all sorts of nonsense, don't they? And with that being said, there is obviously the Green Brigade are having, and the boys have pulled out of going to the Scottish Cup. So with that being said, I thought it would be interesting to go over to the land of the Twitterati and go over to Twitter and see what is being said about the current situation. So if I just do this and by magic, we can go, boom, there we go. And we'll see what the land of Twitter is saying about the current situation at Celtic. The Green Brigade's exclusion deliberately by the board shows the complete contempt they have for the Celtic fans collective. I'm not buying that, because this was way before the Celtic fan collective. They knew the ban was coming. We've known the ban was coming since last season. You can't say that the Celtic board now are picking on the Green Brigade and the Celtic fans collective because of what they're doing now. This goes back to last season. It goes back to the semi-final. So I think that fans, I'm all for backing the collective and backing change at the club, but let's not muddy the waters. Let's try and keep it as missed the statement on both boards handling decades of paedophile ring. You've always got to get some hun in on the action. Next up, they were warned if they used flares in the stadium last season, the club would be punished by withholding 500 tickets for their next game at Hampden. They ignored it, so the club were punished. Now the Green Brigade want 500 normal fans punished. It's true. pot shot at the Celtic board with League Shot Cup statement versus Rangers. The Green Brigade and the boys stand together against the SPFL and Celtic. Green Brigade Ultra scarf up for sale. 56 quid when it cost 20. There we go. The most faithful fans entitled We Neds, the Green Brigade. We are told you boycott ticket groups. You caused the ban. Now this is the biggest bunch of spineless grasses we have at Parker's. Anyone that calls it Parker's should be blocked. And then when you go into this guy's profile, it makes a very interesting one. This Hun love with the Celtic support needs purged. Celtic podcast dictate to Rangers, dedicated to Rangers. Scroll news now. Tim Media covering Hun gossip 24/7. When it was a proper rivalry with elite players, we didn't give a fuck about the Huns. Yeah, I kind of agree with them on that point. No Green Brigade, no boys at Hampden. This is exactly what the PLC want. They want our support to be happy clapping wanks. Most are. Who'll be happy to sing along with the lad from the Carrydale suite? One pace snore fest. I don't think that kind of chat. I think that's kind of, if this guy is in 111, I think that kind of chat can be very divisive. At a time when you're trying to bring the Celtic fans together, I think that comments like that can be very divisive. But that's just my take on it. Green Brigade behave properly. Fans lose out on tickets. Green Brigade take a hit. That was what was difficult to understand here. I was the victim. There's another Green Brigade scarf. 23 quid. That looks a fake one, I think. Tell me you know fuck all about the Green Brigade without telling me you know fuck all about them. By the way, the Green Brigade thing, we're not getting a reduced allocation because they let off flares when they were told not to. What do they want? Other fans to get knocked back for what they've done? Don't get it. Atmosphere or no, they're the ones who should lose tickets. And I've got to say, that's the kind of thing that has been said online. The fans did wrong the first time. I would expect the club to back the fans. When the group causes a fine, the ban the pyro, it's to defend them. The Green Brigade should take some responsibility for their actions. I think that it's a very interesting day when it comes to Celtic and the Celtic Fans Collective, because obviously tonight at the meeting the Celtic Fans Collective will want to have their agenda going forward. With this perfectly timed piece by The Sun, it's amazing how these articles just come out at the very right time. It's got Peter Lawwell written all over it, doesn't it? When you look back, I mean, we've had 25 years of Peter Lawwell putting out pieces to the media and advising and setting up meetings with certain people to report stories to the media. And I think this morning or yesterday when the article came out last night, I think that this is very much again the Peter Lawwell book of how to dictate to the media. And that's what's happening here. This perfectly timed article by Neil Lennon, completely backing his two friends within Celtic, is perfectly timed for us going back to football this weekend. Everyone they knew that it's trying to change the agenda. And it's trying to take control of the narrative. And I've always said that these people are really good at it. The Mootman PLC said, I'm glad I'm not the only fan that's annoyed with the Green Brigade again. They've been warned numerous times. It's their own fault. To then use the Celtic Fans Collective as their go-to comment is, I think that it will be an interesting evening. No Green Brigade versus Sahan is detrimental to the team. Instead of drums and songs, all they hear the rustling of prawns, sandwich wrappers. I don't think so. I think that there will be some singing. You've got to remember when you're at Hampden and it's only that one corner that's singing. it doesn't make that much of a difference to the atmosphere. The atmosphere's made when the whole Celtic support as a whole are singing. So hopefully this will be the day. This will be the time where maybe the Celtic fans as a whole will stand up. We've actually had Lawwell at our club since 1992, so that's 33 years. Yep, it is that. Language this morning, Lorna. Big Rab says, be careful, Baz, you'll be called Happy Clapping for not blindly following the Green Brigade and the boys' mentality. I've said it for long. Celtic Collective have a broken group with a self-agenda. I fully back what the Green Brigade do and the boys' Ultras group. They have done for many years. But I think that we're going down a road where when we're trying to keep the fan base together, you have to be a bit more. I mean, if they're trying to run the Collective as a political campaign, like I say, it'll be interesting to see where this. I mean, I've said what I want to happen at Celtic. Getting rid of Dermot isn't a big thing for me, because who did they then get in? Do you get 35% as a fan backed thing? Do you know? I can understand from a business point of view that getting rid of Dermot could be the absolute worst thing ever to happen to us. I mean, what do you want in? Some faceless Saudi that won't invest money? Some Americans that will run the club into rack and ruin? Look what the Americans done to Man United. Look what they're doing to the club across the city. If the fans manage to get the money to buy out Dermot Desmond, which they will not, unless someone wins the lottery and puts the whole fucking lot in, it's a very, very dangerous situation. Be careful what you wish for. I think the removal of Peter Lawwell and the installation of Martin O'Neill is that's a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. Do you know, and maybe I'm single-minded in thinking that, and thinking of how to unite the PLC and the fans in the way forward. You're not going to get a fans representative on the board. What is a fans representative going to do on the board? Don't know. He's just going to sit there and they're just going to look at him and go, fucking experience you got of running a multi-million-pound company. And that's what we're talking about. Do you know, is there anyone within the fan base that has working knowledge of £100 million company that wants to be the fans representative on the board? Because that's the type of person that you need. Do you know, I follow a lot of successful people online that do have turnovers 100 million companies. And that's the level of person that we're not going to get to be a fans representative on the board. So it is going to be interesting to see how we go forward. I do think that change should be in small increments rather than a big whole collective change. Because if we have a whole big collective change, that could be a recipe for disaster. And it's been proven at many, many clubs around the world. It prompts the brigade. We should be sticking to protesting the transfers, the managed decline, the non-qualification for the Champions League. That's the pressing issue. The 7-point statement will be 47 points at the next meeting. Just a big shout out to Stephen Johnson. Hi, Baz, never on the chat. He's got to go to the hospital now. Hopefully catch us all later. Stephen, he might be away by now, but hopefully everything goes okay for you. Can he sing and eat a sandwich at the same time, says Monty. No, Stephen, I hope everything goes okay for you. I know that you're going through a horrendous time at the moment, mate, and we hope that our thoughts are with you. Monty says you can't sing and eat a sandwich at the same time. Do you get sandwiches at Hampden? Anyway, have the Green Brigade and others ever thought of people's health issues when letting off pyro for those not in perfect health? Don't mind Dermot and the rest of them. Fuck off. Get Martin and Baz says Lorna. I think Lorna will get the end message of this morning. Anyway, it's going to be another interesting day. I'm sure lots more stuff will be leaked out by Celtic. They might show some training that's going on at Lennoxtown today. They might show some of the players returning back to paradise, as they say. It's not paradise at the moment, is it? I think Celtic should start playing that song. Paradise. I would just wind up the fans completely. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans. Yes, and especially you, for watching to the end.